I would put this in the set and forget category of robotic pool cleaners. It is for people who want a reliably clean pool without babysitting a machine, without hauling hoses, and without backwashing a filter after every run. If you are maintaining your own pool and you do not want to spend your weekends vacuuming or skimming, this is the kind of tool that keeps the water ready without making pool care a second job. The design matters because it affects how often I use it and how much mess it creates around the deck. My unit came without a caddy, and I actually prefer it that way. It means there is less clutter sitting next to the lounge chairs, and the footprint is small enough that it tucks into a corner of the garage shelf. The handle on top is wide and centered, so lifting it with a wet arm is easy, and the balance feels natural as the water drains. The filter canister lives under a lid on the top. I press one button, pull the basket out, dump, rinse with a hose, and click it back in. There is no fiddling with bags, no small clips to lose, and no guessing if it is seated correctly. Setup takes almost no thought. The power supply is simple with one big start button. I plug it in, unwind the floating cable along the side of the pool so it is not looped over itself, and drop the cleaner in. I let it sink and burp the air out. Then I tap start and walk away. There is no pairing, no complicated modes to memorize, and no scheduling to fight with. It just goes to work. The cleaning cycle on mine consistently runs around an hour and a half to about 2 hours depending on how dirty things are. When it is done, it pauses near the side, which makes it easy to grab the handle and pull it up. Core performance is what convinced me to keep using it week after week. Suction is strong enough to grab leaves, seed pods, fine grit, and that lightweight dust that usually escapes weaker cleaners. On the floor, it moves with steady confidence and follows a deliberate path instead of wandering. On the walls, it climbs higher than I expected. It gently tips up as it reaches the waterline, gives the tile band a quick scrub, and when it senses it is at the top, it releases and drops back down in a controlled way to continue the route. On steps and benches, it does not clean every shallow ledge perfectly in a single pass, but over the course of a cycle, it usually finds its way across those surfaces and picks up most of what collects there. I notice the traction feels sure-footed. I do not see it slipping even when the plaster is slick, and it does not spin its wheels trying to scale an impossible angle. It has enough grip and suction that it sticks to the surface and keeps crawling. I have a main drain cover that has trapped other cleaners in the past, and this one has not hung up on it yet. It climbs over it, pauses for a second, and continues. The navigation feels smart in a practical way. It is not showy. It just covers the pool in what looks like a systematic pattern, and then corrects itself if it encounters a slope or an obstacle. I tested it in a handful of real situations that stress a cleaner. After a windy afternoon, when oak leaves and pollen strings were floating and then sinking, I ran a full cycle. The basket came out full, with a mix of large debris and a layer of fine dust pressed against the screen. I hosed it clean in less than a minute. After a backyard cookout, when sunscreen and foot traffic had a film settling on the steps and benches, I noticed the walls and waterline looked clearer after a cycle than when I rely on the skimmer alone. In early spring, when the algae tries to sneak in on the shady side of the deep end, running the cleaner twice in 1 week kept that haze from getting a foothold. The brush action and constant suction make a visible difference on that light green film. My pool is a rectangle a little over 30 feet long with a shallow tanning ledge, 3 steps, and a deep end that drops to a little over 8 feet. The Polaris P825 makes it from end to end and up the slopes without me adjusting anything. I have used suction side cleaners and pressure side cleaners over the years. This robotic one is the first that lets me keep the pump schedule the same and just clean on demand when I see debris. I do not have to run booster pumps or mess with valve settings. That simple routine matters because it is the difference between actually using the cleaner every week and skipping it because the setup is annoying. Here is a specific use case that sold me. I have a habit of skimming in the morning and brushing the waterline once a week. One Saturday I skipped both and only ran the Polaris P825. When I came back about 90 minutes later, the tile band on the sunny side looked like I had brushed it. The line where the splash zone tends to get scummy was wiped clean. The steps still needed a quick once-over with a manual brush in the corners, but the film on the flat parts was gone. I spent maybe 5 minutes touching up instead of half an hour doing the whole pool by hand. That was the moment I realized this machine actually replaces a chunk of my routine, not just supplements it. A few smart touches deserve mention because they change day-to-day use. The top access filter sounds like a small detail, but it makes maintenance painless. I do not have to flip the unit upside down and release latches the way I have with other models. The large basket catches twigs and leaves without clogging quickly, and the fine mesh does not choke airflow. The way it senses the waterline and backs down smoothly keeps it from gulping air, which means it keeps cleaning instead of stalling. The power supply having only one button means guests can start a cycle if I am not around, and they do not need to learn anything. There are a couple of quirks. The cable naturally wants to coil over time. If I forget to lay it out straight before a run, I sometimes see a twist near the middle by the end of the cycle. It has not tangled badly, but I now make a point to stretch it along the deck once a week and spin the robot a few turns in the opposite direction before I drop it in. The unit is not heavy on land, but any robotic cleaner feels heavier when it is full of water. Using the handle and letting it drain for a few seconds above the waterline helps, but if you have shoulder issues, factor that little lift into your routine. Also, while the cleaner gets the majority of the steps and benches, it still leaves a few tight inside corners for me to brush. That is not a deal breaker, but it is worth knowing before you buy. Over several months, the biggest change for me has been how little hand vacuuming I do. I used to pull out the manual vacuum after storms or when the trees dropped a wave of debris. Now I run the Polaris P825 once a week and twice a week during leaf season or after a windy day. My chlorine demand has been a touch more stable because the organic debris is not sitting in the water as long. The pool looks more consistent day to day, and I spend less time thinking about it. If you are considering this cleaner, think about your pool shape, your surface, and how much you want to interact with a machine. If you want an app-controlled robot with detailed schedules and modes, this is not that. This is the easy button kind of cleaner. Press start, let it do its loop for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, pull it out, empty the basket, and you are done. If your pool has sharp, tight corners on every step, you will still want a simple brush. If your pool is a mix of curves and long, straight runs like mine, this fits well. As a whole, the Polaris P825 Sport Robotic Pool Cleaner is the tool I reach for when I want reliable, low-effort cleaning with real results at the waterline and along the floor. It suits pool owners who value simplicity, steady performance, and minimal deck clutter. If you like the idea of a compact unit without a caddy and a no-nonsense power supply, this is an easy recommendation. If you want a remote control toy to steer around, or you want precise scheduling and reporting in a smartphone application, you might look elsewhere. For me, this robot earns a place in the routine because it quietly does the job and gives me my time back. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and drop your questions or your own pool care tips in the comments. Thank you for watching.